Before the world was washed away by the great flood, a boundary was crossed that was never meant to be broken. Divine beings descended, human women gave birth, and giants walked the earth. They called them the Nephilim. 4 verses in the book of Genesis hold a mystery so dark that for thousands of years, scholars and priests have argued in quiet rooms over what actually happened. Before the ark was built, before the sky tore open, and before the roaring waters swept away entire empires, a sacred threshold was breached. Picture the ancient world before the flood, ancient cities of stone and clay, gleaming under a hot sun, filled with bustling markets and towering monuments. But beneath the surface, something corrupt was growing. Genesis tells us that the sons of God looked down from the heavens, saw the daughters of men, and took them. From that forbidden union came a new kind of being, the mighty men of old, men of renown, colossal figures whose footprint across the earth left a trail of terror. Step into the shoes of an ancient observer standing on the dusty plains of Mesopotamia. To the people of that age, the line between heaven and earth wasn't a wall, it was a thin veil. They believed in a celestial council, heavenly beings surrounding the throne of the Creator. So when the ancient audience heard that the Bene Elohim, the sons of God, had descended to earth, they didn't picture a poetic metaphor. They pictured a cosmic invasion. Imagine looking up at the sky and realizing that the order of the universe had just been shattered. Heavenly beings were stepping onto human soil, not to deliver a message, but to conquer, to claim, and to alter the human story forever. Yet when you open the Bible to Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, the narrator doesn't linger on epic battles or boastful legends. The text simply says, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward." Then it cuts straight to the darkness. Imagine Noah walking through the streets of his city. Look around through his eyes. Violence fills every corner. Mighty warriors rule with absolute cruelty. Cities bow to ruthless lords who claim divine blood. Men no longer look to heaven for justice. They worship raw power. The earth groans under the weight of human and supernatural rebellion. The presence of the Nephilim didn't bring enlightenment, it brought absolute moral ruin. And as God looked down upon the corruption, the verdict echoed through the heavens. A flood was coming to wash the slate clean and drown the chaos once and for all. To feel the terror this word brought to the ancient world, you have to look at what the name actually means. In Hebrew, Nephilim springs from the word nafal, to fall. But imagine the different ways that word echoes through history. Picture glorious angelic beings tumbling out of heavenly light into the dirt of the earth, the fallen ones. Picture ruthless tyrants charging across a battlefield, crushing helpless families beneath their weight, those who fall upon others. Or picture spiritual deceivers dragging an entire civilization down into dark idolatry, those who cause humanity to fall. Centuries later, when ancient scholars translated these scriptures into Greek, they chose the word gigantes, earthborn giants. With that single word, a visual image was locked into human history. Massive, looming figures casting long, terrifying shadows across the ancient world. If you want to see just how deep this mystery goes, step out of Genesis for a moment and journey to the cold, mist-shrouded peak of Mount Hermon. Ancient Jewish traditions, preserved in the Book of Enoch, paint a haunting picture of the night it all began. Picture 200 radiant celestial beings known as the Watchers gathering on the rocky mountain ridge under a starry sky. They gather in a circle and bind themselves with a fatal oath. They make a choice that will forever sever them from heaven. They descend into the human world below. But they don't just take wives, they bring forbidden secrets. Picture the dark forge fires glowing in ancient nights as they teach mankind how to craft deadly swords and iron armor. Picture them writing out the secrets of astrology, sorcery, and warfare in the dirt. According to this ancient record, the world became an engine of unchecked bloodshed, where monstrous offspring consumed the harvests of men and filled the earth with violence. Even the New Testament remembers this moment. Centuries later, the Apostle Peter wrote of angels who abandoned their proper realm, recording that God cast them into Tartarus, a Greek word for the deepest, darkest abyss of punishment, bound in chains until the final judgment. Now ask yourself the question that has haunted readers for thousands of years. If the Great Flood was a total reset, why do the giants return? Genesis 6 drops a chilling line. They were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards. Fast forward centuries after the waters recede and the ark rests on Ararat. Picture 12 Israeli spies creeping through the rocky hills of Canaan, peering over a ridge into the promised land. They aren't looking at normal farmers or standard armies. Look at what they see. Looming figures standing over walled cities, descendants of Anak. When the spies return to camp, their hands are shaking. In Numbers chapter 13, they cry out in despair, "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them."
How could this bloodline be here? Did another group of rebellious beings descend from the skies? Did a hidden genetic trace survive aboard the ark? Or were the terrified spies using the word Nephilim to describe an enemy so massive and imposing that it felt like the monsters of the pre-flood world had returned? Scripture leaves the visual open, but the shadows stay long and terrifying. Imagine King Og of Bashan, a giant ruler whose iron bed measured over 13 feet long. Picture the Valley of Elah centuries later, where a young shepherd named David stands on the rocky ground, looking up at Goliath of Gath, a towering champion clad in massive bronze armor, holding a spear with a tip weighing 15 pounds. The giants were no longer just a pre-flood memory. They were living, breathing walls standing between Israel and their destiny. Over the centuries, brilliant minds have looked into this ancient mirror and seen three different stories. First, imagine the ancient supernatural view. Divine beings crossing spiritual boundaries, taking physical form and spawning a hybrid race of terrifying power. For the first several centuries of ancient history, this was the story almost everyone saw when they read the text. Second, picture the view that St. Augustine championed centuries later. A world divided not by species, but by devotion. Picture the godly descendants of Seth walking in righteousness, looking across the border at the rebellious culture-building daughters of Cain. In this view, the boundary crossed wasn't supernatural, it was a spiritual compromise, as holy families married into corrupt lineages, giving birth to arrogant, tyrannical rulers who fell away from God. Third, picture the ancient Near Eastern kings, arrogant tyrants who built giant statues of themselves and declared, "I am a god." In this view, the sons of God were powerful human kings who took whatever women they wanted, creating dynasties of ruthless warlords, mighty men of old, who enforced their rule through terror and bloodshed. Each view paints a vivid picture, but Scripture intentionally leaves the exact mechanics in the shadows. The Bible refuses to satisfy our curiosity about monsters because it wants us to look at something far more dangerous: the human heart. The story of the Nephilim isn't just about ancient giants or supernatural lore. It is a mirror held up to what happens when creation rebels against its creator, when boundaries are destroyed, and when human beings decide to play God. We live in a world that wants to explain away every mystery, dissect every myth, and put history into clean little boxes. But Genesis stands like a stone monument in the dark, forcing us to sit in the quiet mystery. The ancient world before the flood thought it was building a golden age of glory, boasting of mighty men and legendary heroes. But heaven looked down and saw only violence, corruption, and a world tearing itself apart at the seams. The storm eventually came. The roaring waters rose over the highest peaks. The physical giants turned to dust, and their cities vanished beneath layers of mud. But the echo of that ancient world still whispers across the centuries. The greatest mystery of Genesis may never be whether giants once walked the earth. The greatest mystery is whether humanity has learned anything since the flood. If you want to keep exploring the deepest mysteries, forgotten histories, and untold stories written between the lines of Scripture, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the ancient world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.